Jake Harrison saw the ships first. He was working on a construction site in Denver when the sky started to change. The clouds moved in a way that clouds should not move. Then the darkness came, spreading across the blue sky like ink in water. Other workers stopped and pointed up. Someone dropped a hammer. The sound echoed across the silent work site. Everyone stared at the massive shapes that appeared through the clouds. The ships were bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. They were bigger than buildings, bigger than mountains. They blocked out the sun. Jake pulled out his phone. No signal. He tried again. Nothing. Around him, other workers were doing the same thing. Every phone was dead. The radios in the trucks produced only static. One of the ships moved lower. It was black and covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift and move. Lights pulsed along its sides in colors that hurt to look at. The ship made no sound as it descended. That was the part that scared Jake the most. Something that big should make noise. "Get to your vehicles," Jake said to his crew. His voice came out steady even though his hands were shaking. He had been a Marine once. The training kicked in. "Move now. Move now." The men ran. Jake stayed for a moment longer, watching the ship settle into position above the city. Then, he ran too. By the time Jake reached his truck, every screen in Denver was showing the same thing. Somehow, the aliens had taken over every television, every computer, every device with a screen. The image showed a creature that looked nothing like a human. It had 4 arms and skin that looked like dark metal. Its eyes were too large and positioned on the sides of its head. The creature spoke. The words came in English, but there was something wrong about the voice. It sounded like many voices speaking at once. "People of Earth, I am High Collector Vex Thor of the Zenthari Empire. Your planet is now property of the Empire. You will surrender immediately. You will be processed and assigned to workstations throughout our territory. Resistance will result in pain. Compliance will result in survival. You have 72 hours to make your choice." The screen went black. Then it came back on, showing news anchors who looked just as shocked as everyone else. Jake drove home through streets filled with confused and frightened people. Some were crying. Some were praying. Some were looting stores. Police sirens wailed in the distance. The world was falling apart. And the aliens had been here for less than an hour. At home, Jake unlocked his gun safe. He had kept his service rifle from his Marine days. He cleaned it and loaded it. Then he turned on the television and waited. President Claire Manning appeared on screen 6 hours after the alien message. She stood at a podium in the White House. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard. "My fellow Americans and citizens of the world, today we face a threat unlike any in human history. The Zenthari Empire has demanded our surrender. They expect us to accept slavery. They expect us to give up our freedom without a fight." She paused. The camera zoomed in on her face. "They are wrong. The United States of America does not negotiate with slavers. We do not bow to threats. We will not surrender our people, our children, or our future to these invaders. I have spoken with leaders around the world. We are united in our response. Humanity will fight." The president's words spread across the globe. In China, Russia, Europe, Africa, South America, and every nation on Earth, leaders echoed the same message. For the first time in history, the entire human race stood together. Jake watched the news through the night. Military forces were mobilizing everywhere. National Guard units activated. Reserves called up. Veterans like Jake received messages asking them to report to local recruitment centers. The aliens gave humanity 72 hours. Humanity used every second to prepare. On the second day, Jake joined a militia group forming in his neighborhood. The leader was a woman named Katie Miller, a former Army sergeant. She organized 300 people in just 12 hours. They had hunting rifles, shotguns, and whatever weapons they could find. Katie showed them how to build barricades and set up defensive positions. "They will come for the cities first," Katie told the group. "They want slaves, so they need us alive." That gives us an advantage. We make them pay for every street, every building, every inch of ground. Around the world, millions of people were having the same conversation. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. Now, all that knowledge, all that experience in warfare, had a single purpose. The third day arrived. The Zenthari ships moved into position over major cities. Smaller craft began to descend. These were the harvester ships, designed to collect and transport slaves. Jake stood with his group behind a barricade made of cars and concrete. He checked his rifle one more time. Next to him, a young man named Chris was praying quietly. On his other side, an older woman named Margaret loaded her shotgun with steady hands. She had fought in the Gulf War 30 years ago. The harvester ship landed 3 blocks away. A ramp extended from its side. The first Zenthari soldiers emerged. They wore armor that gleamed in the afternoon sun. Each one carried weapons that crackled with blue energy. They moved with confidence, walking down the street like they owned it. Katie raised her hand. 300 people held their breath. The aliens came closer. They were scanning buildings with devices that beeped and flashed. Now, Katie said. The barricade erupted in gunfire. Bullets tore through the air. Jake aimed at the nearest alien and squeezed the trigger. The bullet hit the creature's shield and bounced off in a flash of light. Armor piercing, Katie yelled. Switch now. Jake grabbed the different magazine and reloaded. Around him, others did the same. The second volley of fire hit the alien shields harder. Cracks appeared in the shimmering barriers. The Zenthari returned fire. Blue bolts of energy slammed into the barricade. The concrete exploded. Cars flipped over. People screamed. But nobody ran. Jake fired again and again. His bullets punched through a weakened shield. The alien staggered. Another shot hit it in the chest. It fell. They can die, someone shouted. The battle raged for 20 minutes. Half of Jake's group died in Thos. The Zenthari ships pulled back into high orbit. Commander Vex Thor stood on the bridge of his flagship and stared at the planet below, his 4 hands clenched into fists. In 40 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. The humans should have surrendered. Every other species had surrendered. Prepare bombardment, he ordered. Target their military installations first, then their major population centers. We will break them. His weapons officer hesitated. Commander, the Empire's protocols require us to preserve the slave population. There will be enough survivors, Vex Thor said. Fire when ready. The first energy beam struck a military base in Germany. The beam carved through the earth and melted everything within a mile radius. 1,500 humans died instantly. The second beam hit a base in South Korea, then Pakistan, then Brazil. Within an hour, 73 military installations around the world had been destroyed. 50,000 humans were dead. The Zenthari waited for the surrender broadcasts to begin. Instead, humanity got angry. General Kyle Matthews watched the destruction from deep inside NORAD, the military command center buried under a mountain in Colorado. His jaw was tight as reports flooded in. Every screen showed fire and death. They think this will break us, he said quietly. A dozen officers turned to look at him. They're wrong. Connect me to every military command on the planet. Within minutes, generals and admirals from every nation were on the video call. Russian, Chinese, American, British, Indian, Israeli, and representatives from 50 other countries. They spoke different languages, but they all understood what needed to happen next. Gentlemen, Kyle said. Ladies, we have one shot at this. Every nation that has nuclear weapons needs to commit them. Every conventional missile we can spare. We hit them with everything at once. We show these things that we would rather burn the world than let them take it. There was silence on the call. Then the Russian general nodded. Agreed. China commits its arsenal, another voice said. One by one, every nation agreed. The ancient enemies of Earth put aside centuries of conflict. They had a new enemy now. The launch codes were entered. Submarine commanders received their orders. Hidden silos opened across 5 continents. Mobile launchers rolled into position. Launch in 60 seconds, Kyle said. He looked at the faces on the screens. It has been an honor to serve with you all. The countdown reached 0. 3,000 missiles launched simultaneously. They rose from the land and sea, leaving trails of fire across the sky. Nuclear warheads, conventional explosives, experimental weapons that had never been tested in combat. Everything humanity had built to destroy itself was now aimed at the ships above. The Xanthari detected the launches immediately. Their point defense systems activated. Energy beams lanced down from the ships, destroying missiles by the hundreds. Explosions lit up the atmosphere like a second sun, but there were too many missiles. For every 10 that died, 1 got through. The first nuclear warhead detonated against a harvester ship's shield. The shield held for 3 seconds, then collapsed. The ship's hull melted. The reactor breached. The explosion was visible from the ground as a new star appearing in the sky. More missiles reached their targets. A second ship exploded. Then a third. The Xanthari flagship shook as multiple impacts damaged its engines. Warning alarms screamed across the bridge. "Return fire," Vexthor roared. "Kill them all." The bombardment intensified. Energy beams rained down on Earth. Cities burned. Forests turned to ash. The ocean boiled where the beams struck. Millions of humans died in the firestorm. But the missiles kept coming. A 4th Xanthari ship broke apart in orbit. A 5th lost power and began falling toward Earth, burning as it entered the atmosphere. When the attack finally ended, both sides counted their losses. Humanity had lost 30 million people and hundreds of cities. The Xanthari had lost 7 ships and half their fighting force. Commander Vexthor stared at the damage reports. This was impossible. The humans had no shields, no energy weapons, no advanced technology. They should have been easy to break. Instead, they were fighting like cornered animals. No, worse than that. They were fighting like they enjoyed it. On Earth, General Kyle Matthews emerged from NORAD to see the devastation. The sky was dark with smoke. The air tasted like ash. But humanity was still free. "Get me our top scientists," he said. "We need to study the wreckage from those ships. If we can figure out how their technology works, we can fight back." In Boston, Dr. Lisa Palmer was already working on that problem. She stood in a secured warehouse, staring at a piece of alien hull that had fallen from one of the destroyed ships. The metal was unlike anything on Earth. It was lightweight, but incredibly strong. And it still had traces of the energy shield attached. Lisa assembled a team of physicists, engineers, and materials scientists. They worked without sleep, studying every piece of wreckage they could find. Military forces around the world were doing the same thing. "The shield operates on a frequency we can detect," Lisa explained to her team on the 3rd day. "It is designed to stop energy weapons and fast-moving objects. But it has a weakness. If we hit it with enough sustained kinetic force, it collapses." "So we just need to shoot it more?" one of her assistants asked. "Not exactly," Lisa said. She pulled up a diagram on her computer. "We need to modify our weapons to fire at specific intervals. Create a resonance pattern that weakens the shield faster. I am sending the specifications to every military base with weapons manufacturing capability." While scientists worked on breaking alien shields, engineers were trying to solve another problem. Ben Carter stood in a Nevada desert, looking at a downed Xanthari shuttle. It had crashed during the missile attack. The crew was dead, but the ship was mostly intact. Ben had spent 20 years at NASA designing spacecraft. Now he had a chance to work on something that actually flew between stars. "We need to get this thing operational," he told his team. "If we can figure out how their propulsion works, we can build ships that fight them in space." The shuttle was heavily damaged, but the core systems were functional. Ben's team carefully removed the alien components and began reverse engineering them. The propulsion system used principles that human physics barely understood. But Ben had always been good at solving impossible problems. It is using some kind of gravity manipulation, he explained to General Kyle during a video call. I cannot explain all the science yet, but I think we can replicate it. Give me 3 months and a lot of resources. You have 2 months and unlimited resources, Kyle said. Work fast. Around the world, humanity adapted. Cities built underground shelters. Factories converted to weapons production. Scientists shared research across all borders. The internet had been destroyed by the alien attack, but humans created new networks using salvaged equipment and creative engineering. In New York, Captain Danny Cruz organized resistance fighters in the ruins of the city. Half the city was gone, turned to rubble by Xanthari bombardment. But people were still alive in the wreckage. They hid in subway tunnels and basement shelters. They raided abandoned military depots for weapons. Danny had fought in 3 wars before the aliens came. He knew how to organize an insurgency. Within weeks, he had 5,000 fighters under his command. They attacked any alien shuttle that tried to land. They sabotaged the alien equipment left behind. They made the Xanthari pay for every attempt to set foot on Earth. Similar groups formed in every damaged city. In Tokyo, London, Mumbai, Mexico City, and hundreds of other places, humans refused to give up. They could not fight the ships in orbit, but they could make the ground too dangerous for the aliens to land. 3 months had passed since the first Xanthari ship appeared in Earth's sky. The planet looked different now. Entire cities were gone, replaced by fields of ash and broken concrete. The sky was still dark from the smoke of 1,000 fires, but humanity was still fighting. In a bunker beneath the ruins of Washington, D.C., President Claire Manning met with leaders from around the world. The video screens showed faces marked by exhaustion and grief. Everyone had lost someone. Everyone had seen their countries burn. But nobody was talking about surrender. We have confirmation, General Kyle Matthews said. The Xanthari are bringing reinforcements. 20 ships. Maybe more. They will arrive in 3 months. Then we have 3 months to learn how to kill them, the Chinese premier said. His city of Beijing was half destroyed, but his voice was steady. Claire nodded. General, what is our status? Kyle pulled up images on the main screen. Dr. Palmer's team has successfully replicated the shield technology. We have installed it on 3 prototype aircraft. Ben Carter's propulsion project is ahead of schedule. He says we can have orbital-capable craft ready for testing within 6 weeks. And weapons? The Russian president asked. We are producing modified missiles at every facility still operational. The new warheads are designed to overload Xanthari shields. We have also recovered intact energy weapons from crashed shuttles. Our teams are learning how to use them. Claire looked at the faces on the screens. We need a coordinated strike. One chance to remove the ships in orbit before their reinforcements arrive. If we fail, the next wave will destroy us. Then we make sure we do not fail, the British Prime Minister said. The meeting continued for hours. Plans were made, resources allocated. Every nation committed what it could to the effort. When the call ended, Claire sat alone in the bunker and allowed herself 1 minute to cry for the world that was lost. Then she dried her eyes and went back to work. In Arizona, Sergeant Megan Hayes led her team through the desert night. They were special forces, the best soldiers America had left. Their target was a crashed Xanthari shuttle spotted by surveillance drones 3 days ago. The shuttle had come down hard. One side was buried in sand. Scorch marks covered the hull. But the important thing was that it looked intact. Thermal scans show no life signs, whispered Lieutenant Gary Price, checking his equipment. Either the crew died in the crash, or they abandoned it. Stay sharp anyway, Megan said. She had learned not to trust scans. The Xanthari had surprised them too many times. The team approached the shuttle carefully. Megan went first, her rifle ready. The entrance ramp was open. Inside, emergency lights cast red shadows across alien corridors. They found the crew in the cockpit, 3 Xanthari, dead from impact trauma. Megan felt nothing looking at the bodies. These things had helped destroy her world. She would kill 1,000 more before this war ended. Secure the ship, she ordered. Carter's team needs this intact. The recovery operation took 6 hours. Military engineers swarmed over the shuttle, carefully disconnecting systems and packing them for transport. By dawn, the entire craft was loaded onto trucks and heading for the Nevada facility. Megan watched it go, then turned to her team. Command says there is another crash site in New Mexico. We move out in 2 hours. Her team had recovered 7 shuttles in 3 months. Each one gave human engineers more information. Each one brought them closer to fighting the Zenthari in space. At the Nevada facility, Ben Carter barely slept anymore. He lived in the hangar where his team was building humanity's first real spaceship. It was not pretty. Half the hull was human construction, welded together from titanium and steel. The other half was Zenthari technology they had managed to replicate or salvage. It looks like something made from garbage, his lead engineer, a woman named Kate Bishop, said. It is something made from garbage, Ben agreed. But it will fly. And it will fight. They called it the Defender. It was armed with modified missiles and 2 salvaged Zenthari energy cannons. The shield generators were experimental and might fail at any moment. The propulsion system was held together with human ingenuity and desperate hope. Will it actually work? Kate asked. Ben looked at the ship. Only one way to find out. Get me a pilot. The Air Force sent Captain Ryan Foster. He was 32 years old and had flown fighter jets before the invasion. Now he stood in front of the Defender and tried not to show his fear. You understand this is a test flight, Ben told him. We have no idea if the ship will hold together once you leave the atmosphere. The shields might fail. The propulsion might explode. You could die a dozen different ways. When do I launch? Ryan asked. Ben smiled. That was the right answer. The test flight happened at night. Ryan climbed into the cockpit and ran through the checklist. The controls were a mix of human and alien design. Some buttons, he understood. Some he had to trust would do what the engineers promised. The engines powered up. The ship vibrated. Then, it lifted off the ground, smooth as silk. Ryan felt the G-forces push him back into his seat as the Defender climbed. The altimeter numbers spun faster and faster. Passing 70,000 feet, he reported. System stable. You are go for orbital insertion. Ben's voice crackled through the radio. Ryan engaged the alien propulsion system. The ship lurched forward. The sky outside turned from blue to black. Stars appeared, and then he was in space, the first human to reach orbit in a human-built spacecraft since the invasion. I have orbit, Ryan said, and he could not keep the wonder out of his voice. The Defender is operational. Far below, in the Nevada facility, Ben Carter's team erupted in cheers. They had done it. Humanity could reach space again. Ryan tested the weapon systems, firing at debris floating in orbit. The missiles worked. The energy cannons worked. The shields held against the impacts. Come home, Captain, Ben said. We have a lot more ships to build. The Defender's successful flight changed everything. Every nation with manufacturing capability started building ships. They used the plans Ben's team provided, modifying them with whatever resources they had available. The ships were rough and dangerous. But they could fight. In Boston, Dr. Lisa Palmer finished her work on portable shield generators. The first units rolled off production lines and were immediately installed on military vehicles and defensive positions. When the Zenthari tried another ground attack in Africa, their weapons hit shields instead of soft targets. The attack failed within hours. Commander Vex Thor watched his forces continue to shrink. The humans were adapting too quickly. They were using Zenthari technology against its creators. His latest reports showed that humans had achieved orbital flight capability. That should have been impossible. We need the reinforcements now, he told his second-in-command. These creatures are not like other species. They learn too fast. They adapt too fast. The fleet will arrive in 9 weeks, the officer replied. It may be too late by then, Vex Thor said. He was right to worry. On Earth, General Kyle Matthews was coordinating the largest military operation in human history. Every ship humanity had built, every modified missile, every soldier and pilot and engineer. They were all preparing for one massive strike. "We hit them before their backup arrives," Kyle explained to his staff. "We use everything we have. If we can destroy the ships in orbit, we buy ourselves time to prepare for the next wave." The plan was simple but dangerous. Humanity's new fleet would launch simultaneously from bases around the world. They would attack the Xanthari ships in orbit in one coordinated assault. It was a gamble. If they failed, they would lose their entire space capability in one battle. But if they succeeded, they would prove something important. They would prove that humanity could fight back. They would prove that the Xanthari had picked the wrong planet to invade. Dawn came to Earth on the day of the battle. The sun rose over a planet transformed by war. Cities lay in ruins. Forests had turned to ash. The oceans were choked with debris. But humanity was not broken. At 12 launch sites around the world, pilots climbed into their ships. The spacecraft were ugly things, built from salvaged alien technology and human desperation. No two ships looked alike. Some were sleek and small. Others were massive and covered in armor plating. All of them were armed with everything humanity could build or steal. Captain Ryan Foster sat in the cockpit of the Defender and ran through his pre-flight checks. Around him, 23 other ships prepared for launch. This was America's contribution to the attack. Russia was launching 18 ships. China had 25. Europe had cobbled together 15 from 6 different countries. In total, 112 human spacecraft were about to attempt the impossible. "All ships. This is command." General Kyle Matthews' voice came through Ryan's headset. "You know the mission. You know the risks. The Xanthari have 13 ships remaining in orbit. We hit them hard and we hit them fast. Make every shot count. Godspeed." Ryan keyed his radio. "Defender ready for launch." "Liberty ready," said another voice. That was Lieutenant Amy Chen, piloting a ship built in the underground factories of Taiwan. "Vengeance ready," said a Russian pilot. One by one, the other pilots reported in. Then, the countdown began. At 0, engines roared to life across the planet. The ships lifted off in columns of fire. They climbed through the atmosphere, accelerating toward orbit. Inside each cockpit, pilots felt the crushing weight of G-forces. Some of the ships shook so hard their pilots thought they would break apart, but they held together through sheer force of will and engineering. Commander Vexthor detected the launches immediately. His bridge erupted in alarm sounds. The tactical display lit up with dozens of contacts rising from Earth's surface. "They have ships," his weapons officer said, voice filled with disbelief. "How do they have ships?" "I do not care how," Vexthor snarled. "Destroy them. All weapons, fire at will." The Xanthari ships opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, targeting the rising human craft. The first beam caught a European ship called the Freedom. The ship's experimental shields lasted 3 seconds before collapsing. The Freedom exploded, killing all 5 crew members instantly. "Freedom is down," Ryan heard someone say over the radio. "Keep climbing. Do not stop." More beams fired. More ships died. The atmosphere above Earth filled with explosions and debris. But the surviving ships kept coming. They had trained for this. They knew some of them would die. The mission was all that mattered. Ryan pushed the Defender harder. The altimeter spun as he climbed. 50 miles. 70 miles. 100 miles. The sky turned black. Stars appeared. And then he was in space. The Xanthari fleet spread out before him. "All ships, break and attack," Ryan ordered. He was not supposed to be in command. But the designated leader's ship had been destroyed during the climb. "Pick your targets and engage." The human fleet scattered. Ships that had launched from Nevada headed for the nearest Xanthari vessel. Ships from Russia attacked from a different angle. Chinese ships came in low, using Earth's gravity for cover. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos. Ryan targeted a Xanthari destroyer. The ship was 3 times the size of the Defender, covered in weapons and shields. He armed his missiles and fired. 6 missiles streaked toward the enemy ship. The Zenthari point defense systems activated. Energy beams swatted the missiles from space. 4 died instantly. But 2 got through, slamming into the destroyer's shields. The shields flickered but held. "Shields are too strong," Amy Chen reported. "Missiles are not enough." "Then we get creative," Ryan said. He angled the defender on an attack run, bringing the ship's nose in line with the destroyer. "All ships, concentrate fire on single targets. Overload their shields." 3 human ships joined Ryan in attacking the destroyer. Missiles and energy beams hammered the Zenthari shields. For 30 seconds, the shields held. Then cracks appeared in the shimmering barrier. Then the shields collapsed completely. "Shields down!" Ryan shouted. "Hit it now." A dozen missiles struck the unprotected hull. The destroyer's armor cracked. Atmosphere vented into space. Then the reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the void like a miniature sun. "First kill confirmed." General Kyle's voice came through the radio from Earth. "Good shooting. 11 targets remain." But the Zenthari were not sitting idle. They had recovered from their initial surprise and were fighting back with terrible efficiency. A cluster of human ships attacked a Zenthari cruiser from multiple angles. The cruiser's weapons swiveled and fired in all directions. 4 human ships died in as many seconds. The battle spread across orbital space. Ships chased each other around the curve of Earth. Weapons fire crisscrossed the void. Debris from destroyed vessels created new hazards. Pilots dodged and weaved, trying to stay alive long enough to make their attacks count. Ryan saw a Chinese ship called the Dragon take a direct hit. The ship broke in half, spilling its crew into space. He saw a Russian ship ram a Zenthari vessel, both ships exploding on impact. He saw acts of courage and desperation as humans fought with everything they had. "Defender, you have 3 hostiles on your tail," Amy warned. Ryan checked his scanners. 3 Zenthari fighters were pursuing him, firing energy weapons that lit up his shields. The shields were holding, but they would not last long. "I see them," Ryan said. He threw the defender into a dive, heading toward Earth's atmosphere. The Zenthari fighters followed. They were faster and more maneuverable. They were gaining. Ryan waited until the last possible moment. Then he pulled up hard, using Earth's gravity to whip the defender around in a tight turn. The sudden maneuver crushed him against his seat. His vision tunneled. But the defender held together. 2 of the Zenthari fighters could not match the turn. They slammed into the upper atmosphere and burned. The 3rd fighter came around behind Ryan again. But now Amy was there. The Liberty fired its energy cannons, cutting the fighter in half. "Thanks for the save," Ryan gasped. "We are even now," Amy replied. "I count 8 Zenthari ships left. We have 74 ships remaining." The odds were improving. The human ships were smaller and weaker individually, but they fought with tactics the Zenthari had never encountered. They used kamikaze runs. They sacrificed themselves to create openings for other ships. They fought like they had nothing to lose, because they did not. If they lost this battle, Earth would fall. So they did not allow themselves to lose. A group of European and African ships coordinated an attack on the Zenthari flagship. They came from 5 different directions simultaneously, overwhelming the flagship's defenses. Missiles and energy beams hammered the massive ship. Its shields collapsed under the sustained assault. Its weapons fell silent. Then its reactor exploded, taking 3 attacking ships with it in the blast. Commander Vex Thor died in that explosion, never understanding how the primitives had beaten him. With the flagship destroyed, the remaining Zenthari ships began to retreat. They moved away from Earth, trying to reach safe distance to jump to faster than light speed. "Do not let them escape," General Kyle ordered. "If even one ship gets away, it can report our capabilities to the Empire." The human fleet pursued. Ships pushed their engines beyond safe limits. Pilots who were already exhausted dug deep for one more burst of speed. The wounded and damaged ships kept fighting. Ryan caught up to a fleeing Zenthari transport. He fired his last missiles. They struck the transport's engines. The ship lost power and began tumbling through space. "Transport disabled," he reported. "Weapons dry. Fuel at 20%. Around him, other ships reported similar status. They had thrown everything they had at the Zenthari. Now they were running on empty. But it was enough. One by one, the retreating Zenthari ships were hunted down and destroyed. Some died fighting. Some surrendered, and were destroyed anyway. Humanity was not in a merciful mood. When the last Zenthari ship exploded, a cheer went up across every surviving human vessel. They had done it. Against all odds, against superior technology and numbers, they had cleared Earth's orbit. "All ships, return to base," General Kyle ordered. His voice was thick with emotion. "You have won humanity's first victory in space. Come home." Of the 112 ships that had launched, 47 limped back to Earth. 65 crews had died in the battle. But the sacrifice had purpose. The Zenthari were gone from Earth's sky. Ryan guided the Defender through re-entry. The ship shook and groaned. Pieces of the hull were missing. The shields were burned out. But it held together long enough to reach the runway in Nevada. The landing was rough. One of the landing struts collapsed, and the ship skidded sideways before stopping. Ryan climbed out of the cockpit on shaking legs. Ben Carter was there, along with hundreds of engineers and ground crew. They were cheering and crying and hugging each other. 2 months passed in a blur of construction and preparation. Every factory on Earth that could still operate was building ships or weapons. Every scientist worked to improve the technology they had stolen from the Zenthari. Every soldier trained for the battle they knew was coming. The world had changed. National borders meant less than they used to. Resources flowed freely between former rivals. A Russian engineer might work alongside an American pilot. Chinese scientists shared research with European counterparts. Humanity had finally learned to work together, forced by the threat of extinction. In orbit above Earth, a defensive network took shape. Weapons platforms floated in strategic positions. Satellite systems scanned deep space for incoming threats. And everywhere, human ships patrolled in groups, ready to respond to any attack. Admiral Greg Patterson commanded the defense fleet from the Bridge of the Liberty, the largest ship humanity had built. The Liberty was 300 feet long, built around the salvaged core of a Zenthari cruiser. It carried enough missiles to level a city and energy weapons powerful enough to crack a moon. It was humanity's answer to the question of what happens when you threaten a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare. Greg stood at the command station and reviewed the fleet status. 215 ships. Some were sleek fighters built for speed. Others were heavy cruisers designed to take punishment. All of them were crewed by humans who had lost everything and were ready to make the aliens pay. "Admiral, we have contact," the sensor officer announced. "Deep space scanners are picking up multiple signatures entering the solar system." Greg felt his stomach tighten. "How many?" "Counting now." 15. "No." 18. 23 confirmed. "Sir." "It is a full Zenthari battle fleet." The bridge fell silent. 23 ships. Humanity had barely survived 13 ships. Now, the Zenthari were bringing almost twice that number. "Sound general quarters," Greg ordered. "All ships to battle stations. This is not a drill." Across Earth's orbital space, alarms rang out. Pilots ran to their ships. Weapons platforms powered up. The defensive network activated. Every human who could hold a weapon prepared to fight. On the ground, in the bunker beneath Washington, D.C., President Claire Manning received the news. She stood before a wall of screens showing the incoming Zenthari fleet. "We knew they would come," she said to General Kyle. "Are we ready?" "As ready as we can be," Kyle replied. "Our ships are in position. Ground-based missile batteries are armed and targeted. If they want Earth, they will have to take it from our cold, dead hands." Claire nodded. "Then let us make them work for it." The Zenthari fleet approached slowly, taking 3 days to cross from the edge of the solar system to Earth's orbit. They were cautious now, wary of human capabilities. Their commander, War Master Kethnar, studied the reports from Commander Vex Thor's doomed expedition with growing concern. The humans have developed space combat capability, his tactical officer reported. Intelligence suggests they have over 200 vessels. 200 primitive ships against 23 Zenthari warships, Kethnar said. The numbers favor us. Yes, War Master. But the humans fight without honor. They use suicide tactics. They sacrifice themselves, willingly. Kethnar made a dismissive gesture with his upper arms. Every species fights desperately when facing conquest. The humans will break like all the others. Prepare to engage their fleet. The Zenthari battle group took position beyond the moon, using Earth's satellite as cover while they scanned for targets. They detected the human fleet immediately. The ships were scattered across orbital space in a defensive formation. Primitive positioning, Kethnar observed. They try to guard everything and will succeed in guarding nothing. All ships, advance. We will crush their fleet and then reduce their planet to obedience. The Zenthari fleet moved forward. 23 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single shot. They had conquered 47 worlds. Earth would be the 48th, but as they advanced, the human ships did not retreat. Instead, they moved to intercept. All ships, this is Admiral Patterson, Greg's voice broadcast across every human vessel. Remember what we are fighting for. Remember what they want to take from us. Today we show these invaders that humanity does not kneel. Today we show them the cost of threatening Earth. All ships, engage at will. The human fleet charged. It was not an organized formation. It was a swarm of ships coming from every direction, each one aiming for maximum damage. The Zenthari opened fire with their superior weapons, and human ships began dying immediately. The fighter Liberty's End exploded under concentrated fire. The cruiser, Defiance, broke apart when a Zenthari beam cut it in half. The destroyer Hope burned as its reactor breached. In the first minute of combat, humanity lost 18 ships, but the survivors kept coming. They fired missiles in waves, thousands of them. Overwhelming Zenthari point defenses. They used kamikaze runs, ships deliberately ramming into Zenthari vessels when their weapons ran dry. They fought with a fury that shocked the alien commanders. They are insane, the Zenthari tactical officer said, watching a human ship crash into a cruiser at full speed. Both ships exploded. They throw away their lives. They fight for their freedom, Kethnar said quietly. That makes them dangerous. Quote, Ryan Foster piloted the Defender through the chaos of battle. His ship had been upgraded since the last fight, with better shields and more weapons. But it was still a lightweight compared to Zenthari warships. Defender, this is Liberty, Greg's voice came through. We need you to clear a path to their flagship. We are going to kill their leader. Understood, Ryan said. He switched to the fighter squadron channel. All fighters, form on me. We are going hunting. 20 fighters assembled around the Defender. They dove toward the Zenthari flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed everything else in the battle. Its weapons fired constantly, swatting human ships from space, but Ryan and his squadron were small and fast. They wove through the defensive fire. Half the squadron died reaching the flagship, but the survivors got close enough to launch their missiles. The missiles hammered the flagship's shields. The shields held, but they were weakening. Liberty is moving in, Ryan heard Greg say. All ships, clear the firing line. The Liberty emerged from behind Earth, its weapons charged and ready. The massive ship fired everything it had at the Zenthari flagship. Missiles streaked across space. Energy beams carved through the void. The concentrated firepower slammed into the enemy shields. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. The shields held. Then cracks appeared. Then the shields shattered completely. Shields down, someone yelled. Every human ship in range opened fire on the unprotected flagship. The Zenthari vessel tried to maneuver, but it was too slow and too big. Weapons fire tore into its hull. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface. The ship was dying. War Master Kethnar watched his flagship fall apart around him. This was impossible. The Zenthari Empire had never lost to a primitive species. Never. But these humans refused to accept defeat. They refused to recognize their own inferiority. Abandon ship, he ordered. But it was too late. The reactor went critical. The flagship exploded, taking its entire crew with it. With their commander dead, the remaining Zenthari ships lost coordination. Some tried to retreat. Others fought on alone. The human fleet pursued them all, showing no mercy. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it finally ended, every Zenthari ship was destroyed. Humanity had lost 143 vessels. But Earth's orbit was clear. Admiral Greg Patterson stood on the bridge of the Liberty, which was heavily damaged but still functional. Around him, exhausted crew members celebrated. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had defeated the Zenthari Empire. All ships, report status, Greg ordered. When the reports came in, he did the math. 72 ships remained operational. Thousands of crew members were dead, but Earth was safe. Admiral, we are receiving signals from the destroyed Zenthari flagship, the communications officer said. It appears to be a distress beacon broadcasting on all frequencies. Greg considered ordering it destroyed. Then he had a better idea. Can we modify the signal? Yes, sir. What do you want it to say? Greg thought about the ships they had lost, the cities that were destroyed, the billions of humans who had died. Then he smiled. And it was not a kind smile. I want it to broadcast a message to the Zenthari Empire. Tell them that Earth is a death world. Tell them that humans do not accept slavery. Tell them that if they ever come here again, we will not wait for them to arrive. We will bring death to their homeworld instead. The message was transmitted. It spread across Zenthari communication networks, reaching the Empire's core worlds within weeks. The message was clear. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was a predator. On Earth, the rebuilding began. Cities rose from the ashes. Factories produced ships instead of weapons. Scientists worked to improve human technology using everything they had learned from the Zenthari. Jake Harrison stood in the ruins of Denver and watched construction crews clearing debris. The city would be rebuilt. It would take years, maybe decades, but it would happen. Humans were good at rebuilding. You think they will come back? Chris asked. The young man had survived both battles and now helped with reconstruction. Jake looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zenthari Empire was receiving Earth's message. They were learning that some species cannot be conquered. Maybe, Jake said. But if they do, we will be ready. And if they do not, we will go find them. We have their navigation data. We have their technology. The galaxy just learned that humanity exists. Let's make sure they never forget it. Around the world, humanity looked to the stars with new eyes. They had been invaded, nearly destroyed, and forced to fight for their very existence. But they had survived. More than that, they had won. The age of human expansion was beginning. Earth would send ships to the stars. Not as explorers seeking friendship, but as warriors ensuring that no species would ever threaten humanity again. They would carry a simple message to every world they encountered. We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. And we do not forgive. The Zenthari had come to Earth seeking slaves. They found death instead. And in doing so, they had awakened something the galaxy was not ready for. They had awakened humanity. We did it, Ben said. You actually did it. Ryan looked up at the sky. It was still dark with smoke. The world was still broken. But for the first time in months, there were no alien ships blocking out the stars. This was just the first battle, Ryan said. The Zenthari reinforcements are still coming. We have 2 months to prepare for the next wave. Then we use those 2 months, Ben replied. We build more ships. Better ships. We will be ready. Around the world, humans celebrated their victory, but they also mourned their dead and prepared for the next fight. The war was far from over. The attack was scheduled for dawn, 3 days from now. Every pilot was briefed. Every ship was armed and ready. Every weapon was aimed at the sky. In Denver, Jake Harrison heard about the upcoming battle. He was still fighting with the resistance, still making the aliens pay for every inch of ground. His group had grown to 500 fighters. They controlled 20 square miles of the ruined city. "You think we can win?" Chris asked him one night. The young man had survived the first battle, and dozens since then. Jake looked up at the stars. Up there, beyond the smoke and darkness, the Zenthari ships waited. And soon, human ships would rise to meet them. "We have to," Jake said, "because the alternative is chains." Around the world, billions of humans were having similar conversations. They looked at the sky and prepared for the battle that would decide their future. The Zenthari had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest. They were about to learn that nothing about humanity was easy. Commander Vex's Thor watched his forces dwindle. The humans had stopped his ground operations completely. Every shuttle he sent down either got destroyed or had to retreat under heavy fire. The orbital bombardment had killed millions, but it had not broken their will. He sent a message to the Zenthari Empire requesting reinforcements. The message described humans as a savage species that refused all logic. They valued their freedom more than their lives. They fought with primitive weapons but used them with terrifying effectiveness. The reply came 3 weeks later. A fleet was being assembled. It would arrive in 6 months. Until then, Vex Thor was ordered to maintain position and prevent the humans from developing space capability, but it was already too late for that. In the Nevada desert, Ben Carter's team had figured out the basics of alien propulsion. In Boston, Lisa Palmer had cracked the shield technology. In factories across the world, humans were building new weapons designed specifically to kill Zenthari. The war had just begun, and the aliens were starting to realize they had made a terrible mistake. They had come to Earth expecting slaves. They had found warriors who would rather die fighting than live in chains. And now, those warriors were learning how to fight back. 20 minutes. But all 15 Zenthari soldiers lay dead in the street. Similar battles happened in every city on Earth. The Zenthari had weapons that were better than human weapons. They had shields and armor. But they had never fought an enemy like humanity. They had never faced a species that would rather die than submit. By the end of the first day of fighting, the Zenthari forces on the ground had lost 60% of their soldiers. Commander Vex Thor watched the reports with growing disbelief. No species had ever resisted like this. No conquered world had ever fought back with such fury. He ordered all ground forces to retreat to the ships. The harvesting operation was suspended. Instead, he would break human resistance from orbit. He would show these primitive creatures the cost of defiance. But in Denver, Jake Harrison stood among the bodies and burning vehicles. He was wounded and exhausted. Half his friends were dead. But he was still free, and he would keep fighting until he died or the aliens left. Around the world, billions of humans were making the same choice. The Zenthari had come to Earth for slaves. They were learning that some species cannot be broken. They were learning that humanity would choose death over chains.